It's time to talk light, and in this video, we are talking clamshell lighting. What up, YouTube fan? We in here, anthonytoglife, back with another video and continuing on my portrait light mini series. In this video, we are talking clamshell lighting. Now, clamshell lighting essentially gets its name from the placement of your light. So if you think about a clamshell opens up this way, and that's essentially the way your lights are for clamshell lighting. So an easier way to think about the placement of clamshell lighting is to think about your standard portrait lighting. If you were going to do more of a flat light and you had two light setup, basically take that setup, turn it vertical, and there's your clamshell lighting. So of course, there's different ways you can set it up. You could use whatever modifier you want to use. In this particular setup, I'm using a beauty dish and a 1x4 strip box, just because that's what I had. But you can use an umbrella, you can use octoboxes, regular soft boxes. I'm using regular light stands here. It definitely can help to boom your top light, just so that way it doesn't have to be a little bit more off axis. True clamshell lighting, if you really want to get the best effect of it, you really want that light to be right overhead of your subject, and you want the bottom light to be right lined up with your subject as well. So when you're using a regular light stand, it makes it a little bit more difficult depending upon how wide you want to frame your shot, but it can work, as you can see in this video. So clamshell lighting is also referred to as beauty lighting. And the reason for that, and the reason why you would use clamshell lighting, is that it's really meant to eliminate shadows and really smooth out the face. So without shadows, it reduces the effect of what you can see in terms of wrinkles, blemishes on the face, pimples, eye bags, that sort of thing. So if you're either doing like beauty type portraits, or if you're shooting a subject that maybe doesn't have the best skin, or it's an older subject where they have a lot of wrinkles and you really want to minimize that, clamshell lighting is a good choice. Now, when it comes to clamshell lighting, it isn't something that I would recommend it be your go-to lighting, because again, it is a flat light. And when you're doing portrait, you don't typically want to always use flat lighting because it's boring. Does it look good? Absolutely. Is it flattering to your subject? In most cases, yes, but it is a boring type of light. So I really would reserve it for those situations where it makes sense to use that type of lighting. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that people tend to make when they do clamshell lighting is that they will have the bottom light too bright and you start to get more of an uplight effect. And as you know, uplighting a subject is rarely ever flattering. If you're going for that particular type of look, it's often considered the horror movie type look. If you're going for that type of look, sure, go for that look. But for the most part, it is not flattering to have a lot of light coming from the bottom and uplighting your subject. And the reason for that is because we just don't naturally perceive light that way. Just about every light source in life is coming from above us, whether it's the sun, street lights, regular lights in your house. Every time we're lit, that light is typically coming from above. So when we see a light source that's very strong from below and it's coming upwards, it is just very awkward for the eye to see it. So it really looks out of place. So a lot of times people will have the bottom light way too bright, and then you get this uplight effect. Now, of course, it's not as dramatic if the bottom was the only light that you have, but it still is not a good look. So a general rule of thumb, and where you can start when you're doing clamshell lighting, is to have your light at equal power. Now in this video, I'm using continuous light because I'm doing video, but the same thing applies for if you're using flash. You want that power to be equal. So right now, my top light is at 50%, my bottom light is at 50%. And so that way I'm getting even light on the face. When you start to have more power coming from the bottom, that's where you're gonna get that uplighting and it's not gonna be flattering. But although that is your starting point, it definitely doesn't mean that clamshell lighting has to be completely even light. You most certainly can turn down your bottom light and still have a little bit of shadow. Clamshell lighting doesn't necessarily mean that there's zero shadows. That kind of is the intent of clamshell lighting, and that's somewhat what you're going for when you go with a clamshell lighting setup. But you certainly don't have to have no shadows at all. You can certainly have this one at 50%, and I could have this bottom one at 30%, so I'm still getting a little bit of shadow in the face and carve out that jawline a little bit. So you really can play with that power. You just want to make sure that your bottom light is never more powerful than your top light. You typically want to make sure that your bottom light isn't underpowered as well, because then you're not really doing clamshell lighting, you're really just doing one light, and then this is kind of more of a fill. So for true clamshell lighting, I would say you do typically want it to be even light, flat light. You want to get rid of those shadows, but it doesn't have to be a complete one-to-one. So that is up to you and whatever look it is that you're going for. So when would you want to use clamshell lighting? Well, it's mainly used in the beauty world. So if you're shooting a subject and the makeup is really the subject that you're trying to show, clamshell lighting is great for that. If you're doing product photography and you're really wanting to showcase the item itself and the subject, the person is not that important, that's also a time where you can use clamshell lighting, because you wouldn't want to have these shadows or any type of drama that's going to pull the viewer's eye away from your subject, which is your jewelry. So that would be a good time. Headshots can be a good time to do clamshell lighting. Again, if you have an older subject or someone that doesn't have the most clear skin, if you're doing a headshot where you're this close on your subject, you don't want to draw attention to those blemishes and to those imperfections on the face. And so clamshell lighting would be a great light to use for a subject like that. So that way you minimize it and the subject will look flattering and they'll love it. And then anytime you just want to have flat lighting, that's the look that you're going for, whatever it is you're trying to achieve, you want flat lighting, clamshell lighting can work. Although if you're just going for flat lighting just to have flat lighting, having your regular setup would likely be a little bit easier than doing clamshell lighting, because the issue with clamshell lighting is that you have a lot of stuff right in front of your subject. So it's almost impossible to do clamshell lighting and do full body, because you have to have your light sources right in front of your subject. So it really is more designed for a headshot or, down to the chest area. So if you were looking to do something more half body, 3/4, full body, you would just want to do your typical setup where you have one light, camera left, one light, camera right. So in saying that, well, why couldn't you just use that setup for clamshell lighting? Why do clamshell when you can just have your lights this way and you're getting flat light as well? The main difference with using clamshell lighting over using your traditional setup of having your lights out like this is in what I just mentioned. Your clamshell lighting, you typically want to have that light source right overhead of your subject. And that's really what ultimately creates that beauty lighting. So if you think about a beauty dish like what I'm using here, when you're using a beauty dish, you want that beauty dish right in front of your subject, pointing down on your subject. And that's what gives you that nice straight on directional light, and it really minimizes those shadows. Then when you bring in that bottom light, it does the same thing for the shadows that are being cast from your top light. And so when you have your lights to the side, you're getting that flat lighting, but it's not the same as having that light coming from above that's really helping to smooth out that face. And so that's where your clamshell lighting comes in. So of course you can use this setup, and depending upon the modifiers that you're using, you most certainly can get a very close look. But if you really want to maximize that beauty look, you really want to flat that skin out and make sure that there's no blemishes and that sort of thing showing, your clamshell lighting would be the better choice. So there you have it. Hopefully you have enjoyed this video and you've been enjoying this mini series on portrait lighting. If you did like this video, or if you just want to support me and my channel, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss any future videos, go ahead and subscribe, ring that notification bell. As always, I most certainly appreciate you watching my videos. I appreciate your support. And until the next video, take care.